We are live, and we got to start with this question. Is Bitcoin the next world reserve currency? Well, this might sound outrageous, but it is not. Russia, a superpower of the world, we're talking about a country that has a lot of resources, a lot of nukes, right? Getting ready for World War III. Who knows, right? We might already be in it. Who knows? But this country right now, Russia, is talking about accepting Bitcoin for their resources. We're talking about a premier resource that the entire world needs, and they have that in mass. They're supplying a lot of percentage in Europe of with that resource, and we're talking about a lot of money transaction per day in the millions that they can do in accepting bitcoins for that. So this is a huge deal. If this actually happens, it will be history in the making, and I often say, hey, if this happens, it will be a small step for Russia, but it will be a big step for cryptocurrencies. Now we have an entire nation considering accepting it as a method of payment. But with that also comes a lot of things, the good, lots of opportunities for cryptocurrency as a whole, especially Bitcoin, but also there are some risk about that, right? I did made a video or projection of things that I expect to happen within this conflict that's happening with the sanction and all that, and we could very well see this. I think what's happening right now is good in a short term. It could have some impact in a medium term, but over the case, it's going to be a great for cryptocurrencies. But I have a nice show for you. It's an emergency show. I was not planning to do it today, but I had to connect to it because this is big deal. Let's get ready. Let's get into it, guys.
Hey, yeah, it's all about wealth engineering. Might be something that you're not used to. Hey, yeah, it's all about wealth engineering. Might be something that you're not used to. It's okay, cause I'm here to introduce you to concepts. Time to grow and make big moves. All about crypto, come see. Stocks and business, yes indeed. Got the info that you need. Hosted by my homie JC. Hey, yeah, wealth engineering. Stacking and stacking it up. It's time to generate wealth. Till you living like Scrooge McDuck. Hey, wealth engineering. It's time to show you the game. Till you living like Richie Rich. Till you ballin' like Bruce Wayne. Hey, you ain't gotta be an expert, no problem. It don't really matter where you at, just start it. It'll take time, hard work, and
What's up, guys? This is JC, and welcome to the Wealth Engineering Podcast. This is where I create content so that you can learn how to make, keep, and multiply money. And today's topic is Bitcoin's going to be the next reserve currency? Now, if that's the case, then that means we can make a lot of money in cryptocurrencies. We can both multiply our money. We're going to have to find a way to keep more of it, right? If this goes through, this is a big deal for the crypto world. That could even start a bull run in the market. So we're going to be discussing about all the good and great potentials coming out of this news, but also, you know how I do things. I don't just give you the good side, I give you the ugly side too. And I made a prediction, and I think we're much closer for that prediction to happen. I think what I'm seeing right now is great for cryptocurrency as a whole, but at the same time, I have another side of me that is a little bit worried that the worst case that I envision could happen. So we're going to discuss about all that, and we're going to break exactly how we got to this point where Russia is now considering Bitcoin as a method of payments on top of their local currencies that took a beating, and what kind of potentials, what kind of opportunities that we can get from that, because that's why we're here. We're here to learn how to engineer our wealth for financial freedom. And let's get into it. But first, before I start, let me pay tribute to the chat. Salute Queen Royalty, salute Lashes. I don't believe I've seen you often here, but thank you for being here, and I'm glad you're here. And you have a question. What are your thoughts on Dogecoin? Do you think it will spike in the near future? Well, one thing is clear is what's happening right now with Bitcoin. If 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 there is a lot of, if it goes through, if Russia actually goes through with this, it could actually be creating a lot of volume, a lot of transactions in Bitcoin. And once Bitcoin starts pumping, everything else starts pumping, including the Dogecoin. So we'll see. we'll see, right? It's too early to tell. Me personally, I made some investments in Dogecoin, not specifically because of the news I share with you, but let's just say I have some intels about certain cryptocurrencies that are going to pump in the next 60 days that I do share on my exclusive Discord. So from that reason, I get this intel, but that's beside the point for tonight. Tonight we're going to talk about Bitcoin, and if Bitcoin is doing well, everything else will do well. If you can understand that, see it coming, time it right, you can pull out some great benefit, and that could also trigger an entire new bull run in crypto market. So that's why we need to observe what's happening. We're here to learn how to make, keep, and multiply our money. Make sure you guys subscribe and hit the like button as you come in, and also share this stream as many people as possible so that we can be informed, educated. This is not information that is being shared at school. Basically, YouTube is almost our only source of resources to educate ourselves these days. But at least there's a lot of great information on YouTube, especially if you want to learn how to make money, keep money, or investing. You can educate yourself here. And that's what Wealth Engineering stands for. That's why we're here. So make sure you hit the like button, and thank you for your question. All right. So again, salute again, Lashes. Excellent. I'm invested. Perfect. No worries. I did as well. Thank you very much. All right. Let's get into it. Let's get into it. Okay. So what is happening today? Why am I saying this is history in the making? What is happening today? Well, let me share an article with you, and you'll have a sense of what's currently happening right now. So here it is. We have this article here from CoinDesk saying that Russian lawmakers are suggesting suggest nation, meaning Russia, could accept Bitcoin for oil payments. Right. So how did you even get there? So if you have I don't know if you have been living under a rock or not, but you probably heard about the war has been happening between Russia and Ukraine. The West countries, meaning the NATO countries, Canada, United States, Germany, France, they don't really like what's going on here. They don't really like Putin being so aggressive with Ukraine. So one of the things they did is they imposed heavy sanctions on Russia, and one of some of these sanctions severely affect their monetary system, right? We're talking about Federal Reserve not dealing with them. We're talking about like Ripple, which is their current currencies, drop like lost about 30% of its value in a day. So the imagine you're saving your retirement, and all of a sudden your money for your retirement can only you can buy you need 30% more to buy the same thing, right? That's basically what it means. If the currency lose 30% of its value, it means you need 30% more to buy the exact same thing. So that's their economy is taking a beating because of this war. Everyone is suffering. Russia is suffering as well, and one of the ways they're fighting is they have some leverage. They own a lot of resources that the world needs, especially Europe, and they can dictate the terms of dealing. If you want to make if you want their resources, well, they can dictate how they want to receive it. Right now, we're going to break down later why this is a big deal, but I just wanted to mention that hey, talking about oil, receiving it Bitcoin as a payment is a history in the making, because not that long ago we're barely exchanging pizzas with Bitcoin. Now we are at a stage where Bitcoin matures so much that on a super nation of the world, it was once the USSR that was dominating the world for so long, right? And then it became Russia after the USSR fall. It became Russia. It's still a superpower. It may not be at the top of the world anymore, but it's still a superpower. We're talking about like one of the top 5 superpowers of the world. Lots of nukes, lots of resources, lots of GDP that they generate. So again, it's a big country, and for them to set the stage accepting oil, one of the premier resource, a resource that the entire world needs, right? There is nothing you can do in a country without the basic premier resources, and it is oil, right? So for them to put a price on oil in Bitcoin, that gives them whew, it affects the world. It affects the world of crypto. It gives it it gives it credibility. Right now, people are going to take crypto seriously because countries and superpowers are taking crypto seriously. So it is a big step. I said that at the beginning. It is a small step for Russia, and it is a giant leap for cryptocurrencies. All right, just for them to consider this as a possibility. So, but they haven't made it official yet. There's still some work to be done, and we're gonna talk about that. But first, let me say hello to the best moderator online, Gail at night. Thank you very much for being here. Please hit the like button, and thank you also for sharing the Discord link so that more people can join in, and we can continue this conversation on the Discord channel as well because there's a lot to talk about today. There's a lot. All right, guys. So that's what's happening today, right? They released this article today. It was earlier. I was at work and I couldn't believe this. I was like, man, this is crazy, right? Bitcoin accepting Bitcoin as oil, and Russia has been teasing doing something to European countries, right? They've been teasing and saying that hey, they're going to force them to accept ruble, which is their currencies, as opposed to US dollars. Because here's the other thing that you guys, I'm not sure if you knew or not, but um, the US is the superpower right now. And one of the reasons why the US is such a superpower is because they also have the world reserve currency, which is the US dollar. So the US dollar is the world reserve currency, meaning they use the US dollar as a unit of measure, and every other currencies it's evaluating its worth in comparison to the US dollar. So that means if the US dollar falls, if it becomes worthless, then all the other currencies gets affected, right? You're going to have to change the method of measure to find something more value of something that the world believes is valuable so that they can maintain economy and transactions, and you can maintain buying your house or go do groceries and all that. So it's having the world reserve currency status gives you a huge advantage, and that can propel you to a superpower status, right? uh, it gives you the ability to print money as much as you want, for example. And if the entire world needs your cash and you have the ultimate control of printing as much of it as you want, well, you can print as much as unlimited amount of money and go buy all the assets in the world. And how was that even possible is because President Nixon in 1971 he cut all ties between the currencies of US dollar with gold. Prior to that, you needed your US dollar was a receipt for gold. The bank had to store gold in in your vault, right? And then you go to the bank and then you reclaim your gold to get you give them cash to get gold back, right? That's how it was before 1971. But after that date, it became currency became legal tender, right? It's not money anymore. It became legal tender, and now it gives them governments an unlimited amount of possibilities to print as much money as possible, right? But how why did the world still follow that, right? Like, why would the world allow themselves to keep up with that? Why would I give you the right to print unlimited amount of money so that you can give it to me and it's not worth anything? Well, it's because the only way you could buy oil in the world is with US dollars. So if you're living in Canada, just like me, you have Canadian dollar and then you wanted to buy oil in Saudi Arabia, for example, you had to use US dollars. So you had to exchange your Canadian dollar to US dollar and then buy oil, right? So governments buy oil on your behalf and then they'll deliver that in the gas pump. But that's not the only place it goes. It finds its way to every aspect of the economy. So with this premier resource, it's the energy, right? It's the energy that's making the world circulating. So everywhere in the world needs oil. So if you control the oil market with your currency, it gives you an extreme amount of power and control and stability. And that's why the US dollar was the world reserve currency. But now we are at war, and people want to clap back, like Russia. Russia wants to clap back at all the sanctions. They also have oil, and they supply a lot of oil to Europe. And so they're like, you know what? Since we're at war, I don't have to deal with this anymore. And you are accepting you're banning me, right? That's what Russians are saying. You're banning my currencies. You're giving us sanctions. Therefore, we're gonna clap back, and then you're going to have to pay us. You're going to have to pay us in rubles for us to give you oil, or you're going to have to pay us in Bitcoin to give us oil. It hasn't been law yet, but as you can see, this is what lawmakers are suggesting right now, and man, that could be a serious problem for European countries, especially United States. Right, especially United States. That's going to be a serious problem. It is. Let's just say it is a serious punch to the United States right now, because this is the second big superpower country that is thinking about not using the US dollar to buy oil. The first one was China, and then now we have Russia considering that. That's one of the two biggest superpower, um, next to United States, that are thinking of doing this. And once they start doing it, it's going to set a bad trend where a bunch of other countries are going to accept different currencies as opposed to the US dollars. And at that point, there will be no need to have the US dollars as a world reserve currency, because it will be weak. It would, not many countries are following the rules anymore. And then we're going to need a new currency to be the world reserve currency. So here's the question for tonight: is Bitcoin is going to be this currency? US, the US, United States have US dollars. Canada has Canadian dollars. Some European countries have the euros, right? Russia has ruble. So China has the yuan. So all the superpowers have their own currencies. So is it fair for that the big superpowers have their own currencies, they can control the levers? Or are we doing Bitcoin where you cannot really control how much you print, and that gives its value in itself? It's a scarcity asset. So every single Bitcoin becomes worth more. And when you compare that with an asset that is being printed unlimited, well, the price of Bitcoin can be unlimited, right? So that's where the value is for us, and that's why we got to observe what's happening right now and understand where the trend is. Because if we see what's happening and we can plan for this, then it's going to be a big deal. All right. So first thing I wanted to say is it's not just oil, guys. It's not just oil that they're thinking about, selling in Bitcoin. It's also natural gas, right? And Russia is a bigger player in natural gas when it comes to natural gas as opposed to oil. So it's just their energy system. They're considering accepting Bitcoin for that. So this is a big deal. And I'm going to play a video clip for you so that you can have a sense, um, you can understand the problems that's been happening here, and you can understand the scale of this transaction and how much money we're talking about that could get into Bitcoin. If nation starts buying Bitcoins, they're not going to buy it in the millions, right? They're going to buy it in the billions. So that's going to raise the market cap a lot. And we're not seeing any big moves yet, but these moves like this, they make the market tremble, and we gotta observe this. So let me get this video ready for you, and see if I can share it, and let me play that for you. We're going to play it, and right now, let me know if you can hear it. You should be able to hear it. All right. Energy markets don't like uncertainty. Oh, sorry. I usually play with two speed. So you guys won't even understand this because it's so fast. But let's play again. So can you guys hear it? Let me know in the comment section if you can put a 1 or if you can hear it. But I'll play it through, and I'll stop it.
Or disruption. The situation in Eastern Europe has triggered both. Why? Because Russia is quite simply one of the largest suppliers of natural gas in the world. The third largest, to be precise.
Third.
If it holds back gas supplies to Europe, a lot of economies would be crippled. Look at this.
Third largest energy supply in the world. third, we're talking about the third largest energy supply in the world, considering using Bitcoin. And not when this is a big market. This is a big market. So, all right, let's get into it because this is a beautiful chart. Let's try to understand how much energy we're talking about here.
Graph. Russia exports about 5 million barrels of crude oil per day. 48% of this goes to Europe and 42% to Asia.
So, 5 million barrels per day, right? So, from, if I'm not mistaken, the price of a barrel is just over $100 right now, or it could be around $100. So, let's put our calculators here, right? And see how much money we're talking about here. Oops, what happened? Something crashed. Struggle streaming already. Wait, all right, good. So $5 million, 5 million barrels per day. Sheesh, that's a lot of oil, right? So we have $5 million barrels per day times. Let's just say $100 per barrel, right? So we're talking about like $500 million per day. That's US dollars, right? And then they're saying that 40% of this goes to Europe. So now going back to the sanctions that the European countries are taking against Russia, this is why it's such a big deal, because now if Russia is supplying all this to Europe, it's because Europe needs it. Why would you pay all that money to buy it from a foreign country if you didn't need it? Right? Is because there is a serious need, right? Supply, demand. That's what creates a market. It creates transactions, settlement, and then yeah, that's how you have economy rolling. So if I'm supplying it to you, it's because you need it. That's why you're paying it. And then we're talking about like $500 million per day. That's a lot of money. So back before it was 500 million US dollars, right? 500 million US dollars per day. Now we're talking about $500 million worth of Bitcoin. Or we're talking about like maybe half of that is worth in Bitcoin, the other half is in the Russians' native currency, ruble, right? There could be a portion. Let's just say only 1/10 of all this transaction would go to Bitcoin and the rest would go to the Russians' local currency, ruble, right? So that's still 50 million per day, right? That's we're just using some logical low number here to go. That's still $50 million transaction per day that would be operating on Bitcoin, additional to what we're already seeing as a demand. And remember, we cannot print more Bitcoin. There's only going to be 21 million Bitcoins ever created. We're already past 18 million already. So we barely have 3 million left to be printed, and that's it. So again, supply, demand, low supply of Bitcoin, high demands for it. And why there is a demand for it? Why? It's because Russia is imposing or is considering of imposing regulation where they say, hey, we're not accepting US dollars anymore for a transaction. We're accepting Bitcoin, right? We're accepting Bitcoin, and we can even calculate it too. Look at this. 48% of that money would go to Europe, and 42% of that goes to Asia and Oceania. So Oceania would probably be like what, Australia or something. And then this 9% of that goes to non-European countries, like maybe, I don't know, Caribbean or something. And then only 1% of that goes to United States. So of course, the United States is not going to deal with them. It already start banning Russian oil, but European cannot really afford to do that, right? United States has their own reserve they can tap in. They still have their deal with Saudi Arabia to receive their oil, right? They have their own oil reserves that they can tap on. I'm sure I can already tell you I'm from Haiti, and then in Haiti they're already sending boats to secure those the U.S. carrier. They're sending that in Haiti to secure our oil reserve because they want to take it if they ever need it, right? So This is a serious deal, guys. We're talking about a lot of money per day. So 48% of this number right here would also almost be 250. Well, let's just calculate it to be exact. To be exact, so 240 million dollars per day goes to European countries alone. So European countries cannot do much. They're dependent on Russia to get this done. And remember, this is if they don't have that, they don't have their transportation doesn't work, right? If they don't have oil, transportation doesn't work, manufacturing doesn't work, right? But maybe some of the electricity get find its way there too. Plastics, you need oil for that. Manufacturing, like so many things, right? Well, you can all is a premier resource. So 250 million per day, that really adds up. That really adds up. Now, I can already tell you the deal they're going to have with China is not going to be in Bitcoin. That's the other interesting part. It's not going to be in Bitcoin. It's going to be in another currency, or at least it could be in ruble. Maybe Chinese will have to pay ruble dollars to get oil, and then if Russia wants to buy something from China, then they have to pay to their local yuan currency, or China is already working on a digital yuan, right? So this is where it's interesting. But this is why it's a big deal. It's a big deal because we're talking about a lot of money here, a lot of money. And then for the fact that they're considering this, and that we're talking about a nation, it's not human beings anymore. It's not an entity like a company, like a LLC, right? We're talking about an entire super nation, the world's third largest oil exporter, considering using Bitcoin. This is big. This is big. All right. Now, let me tell you also the impact of that in Europe, like just the energy aspect alone, right? To understand how much Europe is dependent. The reason why I emphasize on the word dependent is because there is no other way to go. You see what I'm saying? This is such a huge demand that you have to deal with Russia. And that's why Russia has the leverage, because they may not be too much powerful against the US because the US is not too dependent on Russia. But countries like France, country like Germany, who has a lot of energy demand, depends on Russia. So I'm going to play a video so that you're going to have a better idea of this dependence, because it's very crucial to understand the dependence so that you can understand the impact of this move and how much money we're talking about is going to circulate in the crypto world, right? All right, let's get into it.
Still being bombed, leading to a humanitarian catastrophe.
Oh,
Up to 2 million people have.
sorry. I was listening to double the speed. I gotta fix that. You know how it is. But this is my lady Palki Sharma from the Weon channel, keeping it real. Let's get into it.
Forced to flee. The war is spilling out of Ukraine. It is reaching your doorstep. We've been telling you about all of this. The Russian invasion will have repercussions for everyone, for all of us. Russia has issued a new threat to the West now. It will turn off the energy tap. If Russian oil imports are banned, Russia will also stop supplying gas.
Now, this is a serious threat, guys, because and in these countries it's still cold, right? And some heating system still running on oil. So imagine not having a heating system on a very cold day because your country didn't do business with Russia. It's maybe just a home is not impactful enough. Imagine a hospital, right?
This imports are banned, Russia will also stop supplying gas. This is blackmail. Russia is holding the global energy markets hostage, and the West, especially Europe, is fretting. So here's a question. Are Western nations ready to sacrifice their economies? Are they ready to dump Russian oil and gas to save Ukraine? Do they have an alternative? More than one question.
Very good questions. Do they have an alternative? And the answer is no. They're not for 40%, not for 48% of the demands. So they're very dependent on Russia. right?
Question, and these are very important questions, not just for Europeans, but for all of us. The answers to these questions will determine how much you and I pay for petrol, for fuel.
Here's another question. It's not just how much you pay for petrol, right? It's also how do you pay for petrol? Because that's the question. That's the discussion that Russia raised today. How do you pay for it? It's not just how much. I control the price because I'm supplying it to you. I can slow down supply because I'm at war, which increase demands because there's a lot more of it, right? And I can also say, you know what? I'm not in a rush. You are in a rush, right? I'm busy with war. But hey, if you really want to make the deal, you gotta pay me in ruble or you gotta pay me in Bitcoin at this address right here. Ooh, imagine sending. Have you guys seen a Bitcoin address before? Imagine sending a Bitcoin address to a government, man. This is crazy. What a world that we're living here. We have a Bitcoin address on our phone. I have many of them. Well, guess what? Now, if I make a mistake, that could have been a. Imagine this. Imagine this, guys. Imagine talking about 250 million per day, right? But then there is one character that is different. Let's say whoever is typing the address, Bitcoin address, makes a mistake, and then they end up typing the wrong character, and they end up typing the character that resembles to yours. So that mistake, that single mistakes, end up having your Bitcoin address, your Bitcoin address entered in this transaction as opposed to, let's say, Germany's Bitcoin address, right? Or Russian's Bitcoin address. And then you press the button, you have $250 million worth of Bitcoin transferring from Germany government to you. We see now we don't have access to this market, right? We have a bank account. We don't have, there is nowhere close that we can be related to. We can be on the same bank's Swift system that operates transactions like this. We don't have access to that. We don't even know it. We barely know if it exists. But now with Bitcoin, it makes it really it's kind of like balance the playing field in a way, right? Now you can have an address just like a government can have an address. And if they make a mistake, right? So if they make a mistake, you can get some of that money. And hey, if it's locked on the ledger, ooh, if it's locked on the ledger, you know, it's there. You're gonna have to find who has this address, and they may never find it. And that's tough. 250 million stock on a ledger you just lost like that. Here's the other part about cryptocurrencies. Well, in this random scenario that I gave, it was your address that was inputted instead of the desired address. But let's say that you put an address that doesn't exist. Well, in that case, you just destroyed $215 million worth of Bitcoins forever. So it's a system that, it still needs, it's still in its infancy. It's not ready for mass adoptions. It's not ready for this type of level of transaction and economy. But desperate times for desperate measures, and Russia is suffering a lot from the sanctions, and they need a clap back. And what better way to do it than this? Because I'm going to explain to you the other impact of this and how it's going to affect the US as well. Right. So, I already mentioned that actually, that the fact that they're doing that means less power for the US dollars. That was an additional $500 million per day that you had to use US dollar for. And now this potential might be removed for the US dollars, right? China is doing the same thing. Imagine now other countries decide to do the same thing, like India. India could decide to do the same thing too. Then what? Then you're going to have more and more countries doing that, and people are going to lose confidence on the US dollars. And remember, the government of the Federal Reserve has the control, the lever to print as much money as they need. So people will be like, hey, what's the point of me using your currency if you have all the controls to print as much as possible, but it doesn't really have the same value anymore? because I'm not required to have it to buy oil. I can go deal with Russia, and I have Bitcoin, and that's going to open the door to another discussion now. Who are the next superpowers of the world? Is it going to be countries that have been storing dollars, US dollars, US bonds? Is it countries that have been storing gold? Because if we have a new world currency, this currency might be backed by gold, just like we had it prior to 1971. Or, just like I started this stream, is Bitcoin the next world reserve currency? And if Bitcoin is the next world reserve currency, then countries that have been buying and storing cryptocurrencies might technically will own something that would own a lot of the world reserve currency, and they can dictate terms because they own most of it. But I mean, not else. No, actually, let me bring this to you guys because now the US is really taking Bitcoin seriously. The US is really taking Bitcoin seriously, guys, and all within all this mess, look what happened. The US Senate to consider bill examining El Salvador's Bitcoin experiment. Now, for those who don't know, last year El Salvador started buying Bitcoin. Um, they made it official. They made Bitcoin's money, accepting it as money. But prior to that, prior to them doing that, there was an experiment done in El Salvador where an entire city was running on Bitcoin and not on the local currencies, right? The entire city was running on Bitcoin, meaning you go to the beach, you buy a beer, you buy it with Bitcoin. So you had an app that's actually, I think this app was built on Avalanche, if I'm not mistaken. But it's basically an app that allows you to, buy and sell in Bitcoin, or you also have a wallet integrated in there, so you could pay your bills. Right? People would pay their cell phone bills, their internet. They would pay all that with Bitcoin, groceries with Bitcoin, right? The entire economy was running on Bitcoins, and there was no need. And because the entire economy was running on Bitcoin, there was no need to convert your Bitcoins into US dollars, into pesos, into any other currency. You just have the Bitcoin and you're good. Of course, that's a problem, especially if the market goes down. You're technically losing your purchase power, but it is what it is. That's a risk that they took, because even that risk was much better than using their own currencies that was devaluating over time, right? El Salvador doesn't have the same type of resources that the US has, so they have less control of what they do with their currencies, less demand for it outside of the country. So eventually it's going, if it's not tied by a real worth, like a real money, something worth value that is limited, is going to be devalued with no time. Any currencies are designed to lose its value over time, but cryptocurrencies, when it's fixed amount, it is basically deflationary as opposed to inflationary. All right, so the US is seriously considering that was yesterday. That was released yesterday, 6:44 p.m. They're considering examining this El Salvador Bitcoin experiment, and we're talking about the experiment where people were using Bitcoin, specifically Bitcoin, as a currency to run the economy on a small sector. And then the president saw that. He saw that it was successful. He saw that the currency was a lot valuable than what their own currency. And then the El Salvador became the first country to adopt Bitcoin on a mass level like that. And then they also buy Bitcoin. The government itself can't buy Bitcoin. It's funny to see the president of El Salvador saying, buy the dip. He was buying the dip when the market was crashing, doubling down and tripling down on this market. Right. The bill, which was passed out of committee on Wednesday, generated the displeasure of El Salvador's president, Nayib Bukele. Right. Because but the reason why it's a problem is because now they're slowly realizing, if the US dollars will lose its status as a world currency, well, Bitcoin might get up there, might get more value. Bitcoin might destroy the US dollars. People will see more benefit in storing Bitcoin as opposed to store the US dollars. And we're already seeing this trend with the rich people, like Ray Dalio, for example, right? Like Kevin O'Leary. Many investors, traditional investors from Wall Street, they have always said they're not into Bitcoin currency. They think Bitcoin is a risk. But when they see the level of inflation that we're about to see, now they're more tolerant with Bitcoin. Now they're like, Kevin O'Leary is now 20% of his crypto, 20% of his entire portfolio that is worth well over $1 billion is invested in cryptocurrencies, Bitcoins in particular. So you're seeing the trend. Ray Dalio came out and said that he was starting a hedge fund for Bitcoin, right? For cryptocurrencies. They're seeing the value of Bitcoin, especially in high inflationary times. So it's an interesting concept, guys. And now that's also all this interest, this promotion with social media now, it's much faster to spread the news. When you start seeing a trend where people like Warren Buffett, right, are not directly investing in cryptocurrencies, but indirectly they are. When you see people like Ray Dalio, who was not necessarily fan of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, all of a sudden are saying, "Hey, we want to start a hedge fund for people to invest in cryptocurrencies," right? And social media is going to spread that. It's going to run with it. That's going to create more awareness in the masses to be like, "Hey, inflation is high. That means if I keep $10 right now, by next month, my $10 is worth 9.5. My $10 is worth 8, depending on what the real rate of inflation is." But you don't want to lose money, right? You want to maintain your purchase of power because you work so hard for your money to get it. And if you store it, you save it, you invest it, you want it to multiply or at the very least maintain its value. But it doesn't when the US is printing so much money. And now, I don't know, guys, if you guys heard it, in Canada at least, they're planning on printing $500 to help people deal with the inflation times. I heard this is something that's being in discussion on the US as well, that you get some monthly income from the government to help you pay bills, to help you pay with high gas prices. So it's they're making the problem worse, right? If you print more money to solve the more money issue, you're not really doing much, is it? And that's going to devalue the US dollars. You need more US dollars to buy the same thing. People are saying, if everyone's going to have it, what's the point of store it? And then that's going to give more value to cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, because not many people can have one Bitcoin as opposed to many Bitcoins. And I know that the ledger is not going, no one can hack it. That's going to create more Bitcoin out of thin air. So that's where it gets its value. Shout out to Peter Investor M. How are you doing? Salute to you in the chat. And thank you for your super chat right here. No words, just love. Thank you very much, sir. Always supporting the channel and happy to see you here. What do you think about this news happening right now? I know you're late, but let me give you a quick rundown. Russia, all right? Russian lawmakers are suggesting that nations could accept, I mean, the nation of Russia could accept Bitcoin for oil payments, all right? So this is a big move, and this seriously opens the door to this conversation. Is Bitcoin the next world reserve currency? Why am I asking that? Because the oil payments is usually reserved for the world currency, right? Which was the US dollars. But now we're talking about Bitcoin to get paid for oil payments. So is Bitcoin the next one in line? I don't think it's going to happen, but it's definitely, I mean, Russia could actually make this happen, but I don't think Bitcoin might be the world reserve currency, at least not yet. Or it's too early to tell this, but before this happened, the US is seriously going to be um is not going to let this slide. All right. It's not going to let this slide. Hence starting to investigate and examining this experiment, right? They might ban it. Who knows? They might make it illegal. There was a time if you had gold, the government would steal your gold, would seize gold, right? There was many gold seizure in the past. History has shown us that. With desperate times calls for desperate measures, and sometimes governments goes out there and they seize gold, the wealth of their population, to go fund more wars, right? So they might decide to start seizing your cryptocurrencies if if Bitcoin is the world reserve currency and they don't have enough, they're gonna seize it somewhere. They might make it illegal for you to hold it. Only government can, only the bank can hold it. And then whenever they need it, they're going to say to the bank, "Hey, give me all those Bitcoins that are storing." All these are possibilities, guys. But in the long term, Bitcoin's gonna do well. I'm not going to keep this stream long. I'm gonna. I do have one thing I want to talk to you about though. It's the best case scenario that could happen from this news if Russia actually makes it law to accept Bitcoin and ruble as a currency for oil. There is the great good things that can happen from it, great things. There is also something that I'm worried about, guys, that many people are not discussing. But with this news that I heard today, it's more and more of a possibility that it's going to be a future. So it's more of a possibility that's going to be in the past. But only time will tell. I'm going to break it down soon, but just before I do so, I gotta pay my tribute to hello, Melissa Jane. How are you doing? I see you back in the YouTube streets. That's very good. It's been a while. Thank you very much for being here. Carl Black, what's going on? Salute, Mr. Vladdy. Oh yeah, Mr. Vladdy just shift the act to accept oil payment in ruble. They will have to pay in ruble, and they will have to pay more. Ideal, ideal will have to be made. A deal would have to be made. Yeah, a deal will have to be made. Well, I think he's applying pressure. He's applying a lot of pressure to get his way, right? But I think right now the damage is done. No matter what the deal is, like he's already almost there in terms of acquiring the area that he wants. He's putting serious pain on the world, and he wants to. They want to go back to after the U.S. And what better way to go after the U.S. than basically remove the source of power that they had, the control they have on all over the world, which was the US dollar, right? They weaponize the US dollars with sanctions on who is allowed to use it and who's not allowed to use it, right? If there is a lot of resources and your country needs it, and all of a sudden you're not allowed to use their own system to wire that money, you're not allowed to use their system to wire their money to buy your resources, right? So that's how the US controls and weaponizes the US dollar. But, every action has a reaction. And sometimes when you push someone too far and destroy their economy, destroy the value of their own currency, well, the damage is done. The damage is done. They're going to have to find a way. Even if you restore the sanctions back, it's not going to restore everything the way it was before. So I don't know, man. And the way I see it is Bitcoin, Russia could do that. Russia could definitely use this as a scenario to push BRICS, the BRICS system, to make it like fully operational on BRICS. And then part of that BRICS system could be include Bitcoin as well to really go after the US. And that's going to that's not good for the US, guys. It's really not. Really not. Because the only thing keeping the US alive right now is the world reserve currency. If they lose that, it's over. Market bubbles. There is a bubble. In 2008, there was a real estate bubble. that almost created a global crash, and every country would have wiped out a lot of accounts, like it would have destroyed the economy worldwide. Just real estate bubble. Now, we have a real estate bubble, we have a stock bubble, we have a bond bubble, we have an everything bubble. We have a second, we have too much cars in the industry for sale. We have a bubble everywhere, right? And then we have inflation, we have the threat of recession coming, so many things not going as planned. We just came out of the CV-19 lockdowns that was blocking the economy. We had to print so much money, which is creating now inflation. But guess what? Guess what? In my country right now, in my city, the mayor is saying that, hey, get ready for wave four. Get ready for wave four lockdown. Get ready for wave four, the fourth vaccine. They're already saying that right now because they're seeing what happened in China, and they're expecting that there could be another round that comes in the West. So too much pressure. Eventually, those bubbles will bust, and that's going to destroy the economy along the way. Right. But yeah, that's so Vladdy, Mr. Vladdy here, he has a lot of leverage, and I think some of it will. I mean, I don't think it's going to end up in nukes, but it's good. Definitely going to end up in some pain for the U.S. as well. Right. Only when both parties suffer pains, a true deal can be made. And right now, the U.S. is very arrogant in the way they're approaching it. They. I mean, right now we are suffering the pain with the gas prices, but the U.S. government is not suffering the pain yet because they haven't felt the loss of power. Once they feel the loss of power and grip for their level of comfort they have, that's when a deal can be made. All right. What's up? What's up? Vladi achieved his objective. Mr. T. Mr. T is known forced to export oil. Is that Mr. Trudeau? To export oil to Europe. Sleepy Joe have opened up the oil pipeline. Vladi checkmate them all. Yeah, hey, some of those pipeline goes in my country, Haiti. So yeah, man, they have U.S. carriers securing oil reserves there in Haiti, and then but it's gonna take time. It's gonna take time for all those pipeline to start being active. Within that time, Russia has leverage. Russia has leverage, and there is no way Russia, and the United States or Canada can meet the demand of Europe. Like Carl Black, do you think, in your opinion, can in your opinion, great question, right? In your opinion, do you think the U.S. and Canada combined can meet the demand of European countries? And by that, I'm talking about this is what Russia is supplying right now to European countries. 48% of their oil production. And earlier we discussed that oil production was about was it 5 million? Yeah, 5 million barrels per day. That's what they're exporting. 5 million barrels per day, and 48% of that goes to European countries. Now, if we round up the barrel at $100, we're talking about like $500 million worth of oil per day, and we don't know how what the percentage of that will go to Bitcoin. But imagine just a tenth of that goes to Bitcoin. That's a lot of transaction per day in Bitcoin. And when you talk about only only 21 million Bitcoins in existence, well, that alone could push the price to $1 million per Bitcoin, right? That's the great thing, that's the great opportunities that could happen from this. But we're gonna get into it soon. Let me go to the comments, but let me know in the comment section, Carl Black, what do you think? Do you think the US and Canada can have enough oil to supplies for their needs, and the excess is enough to supply European countries and meet the demand for about 200 and basically 2.5 million barrel for European countries per day? Per day. All right. Let me know. I'm very curious. All right. So Black Swan, We could see a black swan event too. And whenever things are they getting desperate, never know. Always hear black swan. Well, you people need to stop driving your cars and use city transport. It won't be easy. I nobody said it would be easy. How are you doing, Snuggles? Happy to see you too. Let's see. Out of ashes, the phoenix will rise. Who represent the phoenix? Could be Bitcoin, man. Could be Bitcoin. Who knows? I don't know, man. Interesting points. I don't know who's the phoenix at this point, but it could be UA. You could say it's the eagle, right? Maybe the eagle will turn. Maybe the eagle will burn and then it will rise to be a phoenix. I don't know. I don't see this happening. It's like seeing Rome fall and then they will rise again to be the former Rome they were. But Rome fell like thousands years ago and it's still not anywhere close to what it used to be, right? So that's the cycle. That's the cycle of empires. You rise, you fall. But by the time you get your chance to rise again, actually, us black people, we should know that very well. There was a time we were ruling all over Europe. Now look at this: over 1,000 years of definitely 500 years of slavery. More than that, that led to the decline. Because hey, there was a decline that led, right? There was a huge decline that led to this slavery time, right? Because if we were strong, there was no way that we could allow other people to come to us and enslave us. So you got to understand that what happened from the time that we were ruling the world to being in a situation that we get slaves, right? So that's the cycle of empires. Every empire has the rise and they have the fall, and the fall can be very long. We were looking at China the other day on the stream, right? The different dynasties, and they had to go through a period of opium, right? When the British Empire was rising, China was at its low as an empire, but there was a time where they were strong enough to build one of the wonders of the world, that was the China Wall, right? The wall. So that's the cycle of empires. They rise, they fall. So if the eagle fell, if the eagle fall, I don't know how long it will take for them to rise from their ashes. Shout out to Peter Investor. If the USA ever top in the Alaska oil reserve, um, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Would that be enough? I don't know. 48% of European, like the entire continent, though. The entire continent's needs. I don't know if Alaska can supply that. This is where Vladdy destroyed man. He is off the real world and he knows all elements. We have Dr. Evil and we try to steal our collecting well. That's how it works, man. That's how the system works. That's why we have to educate ourselves so that we don't allow this to happen, or we control our wealth, because we can only focus on what we can control, right? We cannot control what other people are doing, but we can control what we do. We can control where we live. We can control how we choose to spend our money. We can control what we buy. So that's the only thing we can do. Focus on what we can control, and then do whatever it takes to protect your wealth, to keep it safe. You work hard for it, and make sure you build your wealth so that you can buy your freedom. That's basically how the system works. So I wanted to save this very is the good case that could happen. Which one you want to first? Do you want the good case first, or do you want the bad case first? Let me know in the chat. Which one do you want to first? Because Russia making this discussion right now, saying that hey, we are thinking of using Bitcoin to as oil payments, right? This has a good case scenario. It has a bad case scenario. Let me know what you want in a discussion first. Meanwhile, I'll go over Carl Black. Um, what's up? What's up? Black folks, prepare because we are next. Yeah, but we gotta do the work. Jamaica and Barbados on the move to become a republic. Oh, really? Okay. Yeah, I did hear that they wanted to cut ties with the British Empire, right? With the Queen and all that. Interesting. Interesting. Cool. The bad case first. Okay. I made a video the other day called Why Bitcoin is Not a True Form of Money. So if you haven't seen it, make sure you check it out. If you watch on replay, I always say I'm gonna do it, and sometimes I don't, but I'll try to do it. I'll put the tag right here if you watch it on replay so that you can watch that video. But to keep it short, Bitcoin is not a real form of money because it is not fungible. What does fungible means? Fungible means if I have this, a dollar, let's say I have a dollar, it needs, and then you have a dollar, I need to be able to swap it and it still needs to be the same thing, right? If I give you my dollar and you give me your dollar, and then I should be able to do the same thing you can do with your dollar, I should be able to do the exact same thing with mine. The minute I lose some level of potential that let's say no one accept my dollar or one business doesn't accept my dollar, all the other ones does, whereas every business accept your dollar, then at that moment these $2 are not fungible, right? So fungibility is simply the fact that you can swap a currency and it still holds its value and it's equal. There is not one that is worth more than the other. But I said Bitcoin is not truly fungible. If you're looking at the value, you won't see this. It's if you're looking at the value, it's not obvious, because if you're looking at the value in terms of price, one Bitcoin will always be, let's say, not always, but one Bitcoin will be X amount of US dollars. And then if I have another Bitcoin, it will be the exact same amount of dollars. So from that perspective, it is fungible. But every transaction is stored on a ledger. And there are ways to understand where this transaction was made. For example, on a centralized exchange, they have, it's called the KYC system. They have your picture, your face, your address, right? So if you go and you buy and sell Bitcoins on a centralized exchange, technically this exchange can tie your Bitcoin address with your information, aka address, name, face, together. Therefore, they know where it is from, who has it. Now, in a scenario like this, where the countries are at war, there is sanctions against Russia, and Russia is doing sanctions against US. Now they're considering of canceling their currencies, US dollars, not using US dollars anymore, and then ask to use Bitcoin instead. That means we're much closer to the reality that I exposed on that video. And I only made that video recently, like last week. Was it last week? Yeah, I recorded last week and I probably posted like this week. But I only posted only a few days ago. And now we're already seeing a reality where this could force the US government to ban cryptocurrencies that are coming from Russia. Remember, one Bitcoin is still one Bitcoin. If I have one Bitcoin that was minted in the US and I have another Bitcoin that is minted in Russia, it is worth the same value in US dollars. But if US government says, I'm going to ban all Bitcoins that comes from this area, therefore, even though it is worth the same in US dollars, if I accept your Bitcoin and I put it in the US, I can't use it because the government just made it illegal to have it, right? An exchange, a centralized exchange, may not want to receive it. Or better yet, the centralized exchange might froze the account that has the Bitcoins that comes from Russia. Why? Because they don't like Russia. They have sanctions. They're at war. The same thing happens with Iran, right? If there is an Iranian that has Bitcoin and the bank finds out about that, They want nothing to do with it. They want nothing to do with anything that comes from these countries. The way we're heading right now, Russia might be the new Iran. And with that, we've already seen the sanctions. And if the more they're adopting Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, the more the sanctions will force them to incorporate Bitcoin as well. And now it becomes a scenario where you're not going to, it's just having the Bitcoin is not enough. You're going to need where does it come from? Because it does not have the same value depending on the location. It could also work on a different way where Russia might ban Bitcoin that comes from United States. It could work both ways. And that's another problem too, right? And that will seriously expose the problem that I listed about Bitcoin not being fungible, which means Bitcoin is not a real form of money because of that fungibility issue. Now, there are ways to solve that, but are we there yet? No. There are ways that we can solve that, but we're not there yet. Bitcoin is not ready for these type of transactions. This is high level of transactions that you need some level of privacy. And when we're talking about like, transacting oil from countries to countries, like this is high level stuff. We're not ready for that yet. But right now, the way it is, with the infrastructure that we have now, you can find out where the Bitcoin comes from. And even though that the Bitcoin was pure, let's see, for lack of a better word, so pure Bitcoin from the United States, they love it. The minute it leaves the country, and it could go anywhere from the world, like it could go to France, it could go to China, it could go to Russia, it could go back to Australia, and then go back to the US. All those history are there, and they might say we don't want anything that has to do with Russia, and the fact that that same Bitcoin circulated in Russia, we don't want it. So that means we discard that off our books. Like this is a case, and if that's happened, that's going to crash the market. I actually made a prediction that regulation was going to start the bear market. It didn't end up happening. I thought that was going to happen this year. It didn't happen. But hey, you've seen it yourself, man. You've seen it yourself. The Senate is start considering bill to examining El Salvador's Bitcoin experiment. They're looking into it. They're looking into it. Biden is not really for, is not really against cryptocurrencies right now, but things like this could force them to be against it. Right? That's what I'm saying. That's the bad scenario that could happen from all this. Now, are you guys ready for the good ones? Are you guys ready for the good one? Let me say, check out the movie. Which movie? Oh, wait, I think I missed some. I think I mean the Great Wall of China keep China isolated from its enemy from the north, finding out ways to enter. Okay, yeah, sure. Wonders of the world, man. But me, what I was thinking about when I mentioned that is who built it. It had to be a strong empire that built this, right? Some empire that had energy. It wasn't oil back then, but it was some other type of energy. It had resources to be able to fund the army or the workers that did all that. Uh, Maybe it was slavery. Who knows? I don't know, but I don't think it was. But even if it was slavery, let's say, you still need to feed them. So how are you gonna fund that? So it had to be. I had to be a huge empire. I wouldn't say a world superpower, but it had to be some level of strength. That's what I meant by that comment on the Great Wall of China. Um, I meant like every empire falls and rise, and there clearly was a sign of an empire for them to build that wall. But by the time the British came, China was, a wasteland. Up until the 70s, it was. Up until the 70s, with Mao and all that, it was. They had a scenario of a famine that killed that they were talking about over 100 million or close to 100 million people that could die from famine. So that was poor situation, guys. And now we're talking about the top three superpower of the world in basically 50 years. Crazy. Let's see. Salute again, Lashes. How are you doing? Congrats again, Lashes, on getting monetized. Or I don't think you monetized, but you have 1K. Congrats on 1K subscribers. And yes, I'm happy to still be subscribed to you and help you on your journey. And hope you're enjoying those gardening and keep pushing forward. Let's see. Check out the movie. Justin Trudeau by in 2011 name and time. Yeah, whatever. I want to talk about this guy. Oh, Justin Timberlake. My bad. My bad. I thought I read Justin T and I read it as the Trudeau. I'm sorry about that. Is anyone who ever met the Bitcoin founder or early developers? Oh, you mean Satoshi Nakamoto? No, no one. It's I don't think it's one person. It's probably a group, and who knows what were their intent. Regardless of their intent, the technology works, but it wasn't necessarily one. The rumors has it that it's not necessarily one person. One person could not have come up with just that and implemented as quick as it was. Maybe it was already in the works. Maybe it was back tested and released in the public like that. But who knows? Who knows? But no one knows who's the real Satoshi Nakamoto. But there's lots of rumors of who it could possibly be. Some rumors says even Elon Musk knows who it is, but whatever. Salute. She stole my thunder. Hello, how are you doing? All right, guys. So there is a good news about all this. Again, if you're coming late, what this is what the news is. Russian lawmakers suggest nation could accept Bitcoin. It could accept Bitcoin for oil payments. This is a major blow for the US dollars because up until now, the US dollars was the only currency allowed to be used to purchase oil. And that's how the US maintained their supremacy around the world, giving them also unlimited amount of power to print the money to oblivion, which is now we're paying for it because that's why we have inflation, right? But now Russian is mad at Americans. They want to hit them bad. And they're like, well, we're not going to use US dollars anymore. If you want us to supply you oil, we want rubles or we want Bitcoin. At least it's being suggested, but that could be law. That could be law. Last month, they made it law that Bitcoin is a form of money that is accepted in their countries. And they switched very fast because in January, they wanted to ban it. In February, they made it money. In March, they want to use it, that money, as a form of payment for oil. In April, who knows? Who knows? Right? Who knows? But what does that mean for Bitcoin? Well, that means a huge amount of transaction per day are going to be made in Bitcoins. More people are going to see the value. It's going to accelerate the mass adoptions. It's going to accelerate it's going to force people to learn more about it. And remember, there is only 20 million Bitcoin ever created. Right now, a Bitcoin is 40,000. Let's just say 50,000 US dollars. It's not 50, right? But let's just say 50. We said there is about how many barrels per day Russia is producing? 5 million barrels per day that they're exporting. It's not producing. They're exporting $5 million barrels per day at $100. This is basically $500 million worth of $500 million worth of oil, right? Now, Bitcoin is, let's just say 50, right? So that's a lot of Bitcoin, right? Per day. Per day. So 10,000 Bitcoins per day. That could go through this on Bitcoin. And remember, we're not producing 10,000 Bitcoin per day, right? There's only 21 million Bitcoins that's going to be produced. We're not dumping on the market 10,000 Bitcoin per day. But yet, just from that transaction, if we would move all of it in Bitcoin, that would be forcing people to demand 10,000 Bitcoin per day. And what would that do? Is all the supply, all the people that owns Bitcoin, if it's not available in the market, well, they're going to increase the price because high demand, low supply, the price increase, and that's going to pump up the price of Bitcoin. And something like that could easily push Bitcoin to $500,000. If this would become law, and let's say 50% of the transaction of per day would go to Bitcoin, that could easily push the price of Bitcoin to 500,000. And now, adding that the US dollar will drop in value. Mm, mm, that's the good news. And what happened when Bitcoin pumps? The good news is when Bitcoin pumps, everything else follows. So if Bitcoin will pump to $100,000, that will trigger a bull run. That will trigger a bull run into the entire crypto world, and other cryptocurrencies will shut up. I think was it someone in earlier in the chat? I was asking you about Dogecoin. Even cryptocurrencies like Dogecoin will pump, right? I know meme coins are waking up slowly now. I was looking at Shiba this morning. Some Shiba is starting to be active again. I have a lot of Shibas, so I did notice that. Right, some meme coins are acting. So Bitcoin is moving, other cryptocurrencies are moving. Bitcoin is crashing, other cryptocurrencies are crashing. Bitcoin basically control the flow of the market. And if we have a bear market on Bitcoin, it is a bear market on the cryptocurrencies. But if we have a bull market in Bitcoin, it's triggered by a news like this, where let's say next week Russia decided to make this official, it's over. This is going to force people to buy more Bitcoin to make. Why? Because they're dependent on oil, dependent on it. They have to buy it. This is not a case where I'm going to buy what I want. This is a case where I have to buy what I need, right? To get the economy running, to get the country running. So it, and we're talking about like 40%, 48% just on European alone. And I didn't show you the graph for natural gas, because Russia also said we can accept Bitcoin for natural gas, because remember last month they made it as money, and they're supplying 72% of natural gas in European countries. So if Russia decide not to supply natural gas, forget it. They can shut down Europe entirely because they dominate this market in Europe, right? This is not a country to mess with, because the minute they decide to control this to their advantage, they can really force European countries like Germany, France, like big superpowers, England, all of that, all of these countries are benefiting from the transaction that they're making with Russia. But if Russia is imposing that on them, they're really controlling the flow. And we're talking about premier resources. Oil is one of them. Natural gas is crucial for energy, heating. So at least we're getting in the summer. It would have been more impactful in December, but still, right? 72% of that in the market. Imagine that goes to I don't know how, like cubic meters or something. I don't know the unit they use or the quantity that equals to in terms of dollars, if we could get a number on that. But 72% of any market, you're dominating it, right? So accepting that in Bitcoin, this is crazy. This is crazy. This is a lots of money that we're talking about here. Lots of money. So that's the good news. Now we're talking about not just oil, we're talking about natural gas. Both of them can be transact in Bitcoin on a nation level, so meaning millions dollars worth of transaction per day. That equals to $1 billion worth of transactions per month, right? So interesting. That's definitely going to increase the demand for more Bitcoin, but you cannot produce more Bitcoin. So the only people that can supply the demand are the people like us that are investing in cryptocurrencies, right? And even then, we won't have enough Bitcoin to supply for the demand. So the way that we balance that equation is we increase the price. Now, all of a sudden, if one Bitcoin is $1 million, then maybe I don't need to give you $1 million for the transaction. I can give you a half of a Bitcoin to make the deal happen, right? I can, if you need half, I'll give you a half. Like you're going to have to increase the price to make this thing like that, and something like this could be the catalyst that really pumps cryptocurrency to all-time highs. This is a huge catalyst because that's going to send the trend for other countries as well. It's a big deal. It's a big deal, and it's seriously a threat. It is a serious threat to the US dollars and its position as a world reserve currency. But at the same time, it's more benefit for us crypto investors who have been storing cryptos. Even if you don't hold Bitcoin specifically, when Bitcoin pumps, everything else pumps. But this move here, again, is a small move for Russia, but it's a giant leap for cryptocurrencies. All right. So that's basically the best case scenario that could happen from this. All right. The worst case, I've already talked about it. It could lead to US being banned. Um, Bitcoins that come from this area, there are ways around it. Trust me, that's going to stimulate more innovation faster when things are in the digital world in less than 6 months. You will be amazed on what you can do. So it's not going to take long, but there could be a time where if this becomes too successful too fast, it's going to force US to act on it, and they might be very aggressive on the way they act on it, such as seize, just like they have done in the past, gold seizures, Bitcoin seizures, right? So they might do that. So if you can see it happen, you can prepare for it. Maybe even go in a location where they can't get you. Then it's a lot easier for you to plan ahead if you can kind of like sense and feel. It's kind of like checkers, right? Playing checkers. You can see what's coming and you're two steps ahead of them. You see what's coming and you make your moves to protect your wealth. And that's how you have to navigate in these streets, man. You have to be a wealth engineer. Shout out to wealth engineering. But make sure you subscribe, guys. I'm sure all of you are, but just make sure you hit that subscribe. How are you doing, Karine? Hope you're doing well. Yeah, sorry you missed it. I'm just wrapping up right now, but you can watch the replay if you want. I going over some great points. I also had to play some video from our favorite girl, Palki Sharma. So shout out to her. Let's see. Let's see. Um, right. So what's going on? Let me finish the comment. This is the power of leverage. Exactly. Vladdy is a master strategist, and they will have to bow down and kiss the ring when it all said and done. Or there goes you guys. Absolutely. Yes. Yes. And he's calling their bluff, guys. Like this guy 2 weeks ago was like saying, get the nukes ready just in case. Like he's an extremist. He's ready to go whichever way is really if one and guys, that's the dangers of the sanctions, guys. When the minute they start the sanction and they cripple the economy of Russia, you give them nothing to lose. He already lost a lot from the economy, so he has nothing more to lose. From now, what do you have to lose? Shout out to Carl Black. Your gas. Okay, you don't want to lose it? Fine. I want Bitcoin for it. I'm not using US dollars anymore. I want Bitcoin for it. Who's gonna win? Us. But interesting. I don't know. They want the bankers don't want this to happen, but decentralized exchange, decentralized finance is here to stay. But if you needed any convincing that Bitcoin is here to stay, this is it. This is it. This is all you need. Is Bitcoin is here to stay? Well, if Russia would ever make this happen, Bitcoin is here to stay. All right. But even if Russia does not make this happen, Bitcoin is still need to say whenever something goes in $1 billion worth of net worth, but now the entire cryptocurrency market is in 2 trillion, and almost 50% of that is in Bitcoin alone. So that's a lot of money. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, it's not really, but it's still a lot of, like, it surpassed the billions status. It's in trillion market cap. There's too much value in Bitcoin for it not to be around for a while. But now, again, now Russia, we're talking about country level experimenting with that. It's here to stay, guys. It's not going anywhere. And it might even be a world currency. I think it would be the best world currency because it will be the only currency that people can use that is backed by math and not by a country's politician. They cannot control the financial policies. They cannot do it. Everyone has to follow the same law. It is fair, impartial. It can be hacked, but hey, if Google decide to create a supercomputer one day, like a quantum computer, and figure out a way to hack it, that's a different story for a different day. All right. What did you say? I have to say the banksters are done. They are dinosaurs waiting for the meteorites to hit. They are his real target with their funny money system. I don't know. I don't know about that. I don't know if Mr. Vladdy, the real target is the banksters. Real target is the West, man. Because making a move like this, that's really going to affect the United States power across the world without having to send a nuke, right? Without having to directly send a sanction against them. So this is a beautiful play and strategies. Beautiful play, but it's going to have severe damage without any effort from your side. That's like the art of war type of moves. Thank you again, Gail, for sharing the links on the Discord. Thank you very much. Yes, your journalist crush, absolutely. Really, you believe that he's the master? He's a master. What? I mean, Mr. Vladdy, Mr. Putin? Yeah. Oh yeah. Ah, Putin? Yeah, oh, bro. Yeah, we didn't need the war to know that. We didn't need the war to know Putin was a strategist. But the war is definitely displaying his move, because making a move like that, right? Making a move like that is crazy. Calling the West out of the bluff and invade Ukraine and go after their resources. Now imagine you have 72% of natural gases. You're going to have the natural gases from Ukraine as well, increasing your market share on this industry. And then also, what else are you going to have, right? Land. Ukraine has one of the most valuable resource in entire Europe, which is food and land to grow it for over 600 million people. He's going to control that. What if he says he wants Bitcoin for that? Great. You need that to survive. You're going to have to deal with him, right? And now the way he plays his puzzles is going to get, regardless of what happens, it's either Putin dies or he's going to get Ukraine. One of the two will happen. All right? One of the two will happen. And if he's alive, the way that he sets his pawn is going to get it. It's a matter of time. It's a matter of time. He is a strategist. But I wouldn't say the US is so innocent either. They knew they could count on Putin to go to war. Maybe they wanted to go to war. Maybe they had no choice but to go to war because they needed an excuse to print more money to keep the level of power they have. And despite all that, they're still losing it because why? Mr. is making moves like this. Right? It was the same type of move that there was a guy named Gaddafi was making, but he wasn't Bitcoin. It was oil. Sorry, it wasn't Bitcoin, it was gold, dinar and gold. The dinar that was going to be backed by gold instead of US dollars. Next thing you know, he doesn't have nukes, it's gone. But Vladi has nukes. So you can't really play like that with him, right? Vladi is the most dangerous, but the person or person behind him are. They all are. They all are dangerous. But me, man, I'm just trying to get my piece of the cat of the pie and go somewhere else where if there is a nuke happens, hopefully the fallout won't reach me. But I know regardless of what we do, we just want to pray that this does never happen. But hey, maybe it's a good time to invest into subtier like basements, building instead of having an empire or building up, you're having it a building on a downside. And I could start a company like that, man, getting ready for war, like fallouts and stuff. No windows. Anyway, what are you we talking about for former head of the KGB? Vlad is the master strategist. He checkmate them on every move they make. Yes, yes. Again, I remember I was telling you that Peter Investor that the longer this war lasts, it's going to actually benefit Putin and not the US or the West side, and is almost wrapping up in a way, is putting them in a way that they have to make a move. The way that he's moving is creating tension between the European NATO ally and then the US NATO allies because they don't see eye to eye. Why? Because he controls 72% of the natural gas, 40% of their oil, and he's going straight, and he knows that he said, "Hey, I have nukes. Don't touch this country. Let me go invade it in peace. Let me go invade it. Don't interfere because if you interfere, World War III." And you seen the US is respecting his choice, man. Bunkers, absolutely. I beg to disagree. Strategist, yes, but not a master. Well, let me finish reading your comment. The moves is also based on the ego, on the need for power, which will make one's emotions precede their intelligence. No, I disagree. That I disagree with. This is not a move made on power. My bad. Everything is made for power. War is always made for power. It's not an ego necessarily, right? You don't necessarily chase power because of your big ego. Of course, you need a big ego to be there in the first place as a president. That's not the point. You want power so that others. What is the purpose of power? The purpose of power is simple. Let it be let it be said, let it be done. Right? That's basically the purpose of power. The purpose of power is if I'm thinking of something, I want my will to become reality. If I wanna get something, I need that to be done already. Priscilla, and I used to watch this movie from the Moses movie, and it used to be in French, and then they say que cela soit écrit et accompli. It was the Ramses that was saying that. It's basically a translation that says, "Hey, when I say something, you write it down and you get it done." Right. So the more power you are, the more you get your stuff done. Whatever you want gets done. Right. And the more powerful get their way, and the least powerful doesn't get anything. So what does Putin want? He doesn't necessarily have a because of ego. He wants his way, and his way was don't get too close to my country with nukes, which is in a way, this is a fair, whether you disagree with the man, you agree with the man, that's let's if we remove the emotion out of it, this is a fair request. These were the countries that were at war in the World War II. They both had developed serious amount of nukes in those times. And since then, those nukes increase in scales. Both countries had scientists working on nukes. They never stopped. right? But they're saying, hey, we have a bad blood between us for years. You all over here on this side of the world, I'm here on this side of the world. Let it be like that. Don't interfere with my stuff. I'm not going to interfere with your stuff. When Russia wanted to help Fidel Castro, a fellow communist country, to him, what did the United States say? Anything that happens in this back court is ours. We control this. And they didn't even allow any boats to cross that land. And if they had crossed it, that would have started another war that would have led to a world war, right? So if the United States can make these rules, it is only fair for one of the big superpowers of the world to make the same rules. Say, hey, don't come closer to us. Now, if Ukraine would have been part of NATO, which you heard the news, United States was really pushing for this to happen. Ukraine share a big border with Russia. And what does NATO country do? They have guns from the United States. They position themselves. So you would literally have nukes right on their borders, aiming at them. Now, what would that do? Remember, I was telling you what is the purpose of power is to get your way. That puts Putin in a situation where he cannot get his way because now he has nukes right at his border, getting him to comply. And power doesn't like to comply. So it is only fair that if Russia cannot do that, move his missile in Cuba, that United States doesn't move his missile in Ukraine. So it is not necessarily based on ego and emotion. It's I'm all over in my side of the world. I've been there for years, centuries. I ask you not to move. That's how he made peace and stop the World War III, and agree on de-escalating tension, Cold War, and all that. That's what we agreed on. And then you breach contract, and you're getting closer, closer, closer to the point where you're like, okay, this is the last straw. You get there, gone. So I disagree. It's not the need for power that led to him. It's in his mind, he's not getting his way. He's being forced in a corner where he has more and more countries getting closer to him. All of them has NATO nukes, right? And the more nukes is surrounding him, the more he has to comply. And power is not going to comply. So he's basically asking them to bow down. And no, you cannot ask any powerful man to do that. If you want to bow down, you have to prove me you're more powerful than me. And basically right now, Russia has definitely put themselves up there in the world, say that, hey, we can impose our way too. And now you see the NATO countries are complying. They're complying, right? But if he didn't do that, it would have been Russia that would have to comply with NATO. Now that he's making his move, he sets the rule. He's controlling how he wants to get paid. He sets the rule. So it's not a need for power. Power is simple. If you don't get more power, someone else will use their power over you. Simple. There is no medium in power. It's either you get more or you get less. Period. So that's that. But there was something I did agree with you though. Let me see, make sure I mention it. Sorry, I beg to disagree. Yes, but not a master. I wouldn't say he's a master. I can agree with that. But hey, when you compare him with Macron, when you compare him with Boris Johnson, right, the UK guy, when you compare it with Justin Trudeau, Canadian, when you compare it with Joe Biden, may not be a master, but compared to these guys, I don't know. You know what I mean? I don't know. But hey, master, You just it's all relative, right? All relative to who, against who am I fighting? And right now he puts them all and he makes them comply. And if he goes with Bitcoin, well, friends are gonna have to send some Bitcoin if they want their gas, which will supersede their intelligence. Nah, no. Let me see. This is a decade of old war. Again, I gotta wrap this up, guys. I've been a little bit more than I anticipated, but let me make sure. If you guys want me to stay longer, send me super chats. But let me wrap it. Let me go over the comments very quickly. This is a decade old war. Yeah, Vladdy has been planning for a decade. He made his move. Yes, I agree. I believe that. I started believing that when I noticed that he was working on bricks for a very long time. The brick thing he was working on is best. It's anticipation for this moment that we're seeing now, right? Maybe the deal is don't use Bitcoin, use bricks. Either way, it's not US dollars, which is going to severely affect US power around the world. He made his move at the right time in the middle of the winter. He knows European needs that. But he waited long enough for. Actually, no, the right time would have been in December, right after January, right, right after Christmas. Boom, right? And then right in the middle of winter, because 3 months, let's say they did that in December, right? February, 3 months later, you're still in cold winter. And then now you're saying, I want Bitcoin. Oof. Oof, you're going to have to pay him because now we know we're March, ending March. It's going to be hot weather coming soon. Next month, like here, I can go out like this right now. It was 8 degrees Celsius today, which I don't know how much that is in Fahrenheit. But it's winter is ending right now. But if he had done that maybe a month later, I would have a month earlier. I'm sorry, that would have been more impactful. Invade in peace. Hey, it's the law of the fittest. Only the strong survive, right? If invade in peace, because let's be honest. Let's be honest. Do you think the U.S. really cares about Ukraine? Do you think US really care about Ukrainians? Because if they did, right, would they let them hanging so long when they ask for help? You see the politics where I need no fly zones. Well, I can't really send the jet. How about Poland? You do it, right? I'll send you the jets, and then you send him the jet. Like, no. Is it the war? Why do US needs to be involved in all wars? Why do you have to use your tax dollars to go to Ukraine? Do you care about Ukraine? Right? Because that's the way you got to think about it. You got to think that when you go to work, let's say you work a 9 to 5, right? You work 8 hours a day, 40 hours on a good week. You work 40 hours a week. And on a bad week, you might work 60 hours. Less time with your family, more time that you have to work to pay taxes. For what? For your taxes to be used to go save Ukraine. Noble cause, but if Jamaica needs to be saved, if Haiti needs to be saved, are they going to care the same way? Right? Is it your war? Because you are paying for it. And the guy is all over the side of the world. All he asked, if his needs was met, there would be no invasion. And what was his needs? Don't get closer to me. Why they have to use your tax dollars to go get closer to their enemies and not expect war? Right? That's the way. US doesn't really care because if they look at who's really suffering from all this. Ukraine. Everyone else is gaining from it. Justin Trudeau is acting tough, saying that, hey, re-election is coming. Biden has a re-election coming. Boris Johnson has a re-election. Macron has a re-election. Everyone has a re-election. All of a sudden, the only discussion that's been happening in last month is war, No one is talking about politics, getting point on the polls. But Ukraine president, he may have to leave, or he might get right. He might get shot. How many mercenaries the Russian people are sending against to this guy? So that's why he talks so desperate, because his life is at risk every day, and they're aiming for his life. But he's been able to talk on social media for days, and you still don't see any NATO presence. Yet NATO really wanted him prior to this invasion. NATO said, "Hey, come in to our doorsteps." The reality is they didn't really care about Ukraine. They were just using Ukraine as a pawn to trigger Putin and anticipate him to attack. Because why? I told you the US needs to a war in a way so that they can print more money. That's the only way they had to keep the bubble afloat past the next election. That's all they care about right now. Make sure the bubble stay up until the next election. After that, we cannot be reelected anyway. We'll let it crash, and then we'll do politics. But Mr. T have big egos. Yeah, everyone has big ego. I have a big ego. So who has a bigger ego than me? I think Mr. T, he probably has a bigger ego than me. But other than that, man, I know I have a way bigger ego than Sleepy Joe, than Justin Trudeau. I don't know about Putin though. But Mr. T, yeah, he definitely has a bigger ego than me. Everyone has egos. It's not ego is nothing, man. It's what you do with it. Foolish, incompetent, but expect everyone to bow down. Vladdy has no. No, I disagree that Vladdy do has, man. Vladdy has a. Come on, how can you say that? Vladdy has no ego, bro. You don't know ego. If you Vladdy has no ego, card black. Nah, my man. Nah, I disagree with that. He wanted them years ago. The US breached their contract. Yes, the US breached their contract. Absolutely. Breaching a contract that led to peace is an act of war. According to Sun Tzu, first you attack the strategy. The second, you attack their alliance. Last, you attack their soldiers. Mm. Mm. It makes me think of the way Russia is moving right now. I don't know about the attack the strategy. What strategy? If the strategy is getting on NATO, then yeah, he definitely attack that. Second allied attack their allies. Putin definitely did that, because now the NATO countries are severed. There is the US, who's leading the NATO's, is not in agreement with Germany and France, because that's where the gas is coming from. So things can't really move in. And last, you attack the soldiers. We'll see about that. We'll see. Time will tell about that. But right now, yes, a lot of losses on both sides. I see this. I see this. I see, said the black man to his deaf daughter. Your explanation makes sense. Okay. Can't we all just get along? No, that's not how the world works. There have to be, for positivity. If you want positive energy, you need negative energy. There is no positivity without negativity, and there is no negativity without positivity. So, for us to know the value of getting along, we have to go in cycles of war to understand, all right, we really don't want that. And when we spend too long in peace, we need to be reminded of that. That's the cycle. Just the cycle of human nature. There's no way we can change it. But if you think about it, all those cycles, hate, love, is creating evolution, is in creating more innovation, that leads us to a higher race, right? Next thing you know, we're going to conquer Mars. Next thing we know, we're going to conquer Pluto, right? But around this time, there's going to be love-hate relationship. At one point, it may not be guns anymore, because the guns will just be too much to destroy the world. It might be different types of wars, like wars, for example. It could be an ethic war. It could be a communication war. It could be a consciousness war, where you have to put a chip or on your mind. Shout out to Elon Musk with his neural links. Karen, well, good. You're getting it. They violated a geopolitical agreement. They using Ukraine as a proxy to set up bases near Russian border. Absolutely, yeah. It's okay if you do that in a country that can defend themselves. That is called invasion. That's what the US have done all over the place, especially in Haiti. Because why? We don't have nukes. But if I was the leader of Haiti, I had nukes. You think US would come and do something like this and me not using my nukes? Hell no. Hell no. I would rather die and kill the entire country, but my way or the highway. My way or ashes. But hey, I'm just a guy on the internet. Nothing else. Thank you very much, JT Coin Rings. Hello, Wealth Engineering. Thank you for supporting the stream. Thank you very much. And the official sponsor of the stream, also Peter Investor M, with another $2.5. You guys really want me to keep going. Sheesh. Trying to go fast. You guys are giving more super chat, and I have to go and stick with the. I wanted to wrap up, guys. Karine, that's called collateral damage in military terms. It is necessary on its necessary side, but that's the reality. Yep. There's a movie called Collateral Damage by Arnold Schwarzenegger. Really show you the people are there. At the end of the day, guys, it comes down to power. There is no middle ground. Either you get more, or someone else is going to use their power on you. Right now, governments technically have more power on us, which is why they control us. But if we realize that we have the power, we can flip the script around, right? But what can you do? You can only focus on what you can control. You can control where you move. You can control where you spend your money. You can control where you invest. So acquire more power by focusing on your control and acquire things and make only decisions that are making you more money. And more money gives you more influence. More influence gives you more power. All right. And maybe one day you can be at a point where you're going to stop taxes altogether. Bitcoin as a reserve currency might be the end of banks. Yes. And that's exactly what this move is aiming at. Is accelerating the decline of the US, because the US is trying to extend that decline, because one way or another is going to decline. It already started the decline since the 1970s. But a move like that is going to accelerate the decline of the US, while the US is trying to reduce the decline. Interesting comment. Thank you again, Gail, for sharing the Discord link. Vladdy couldn't not do this in December because yeah, I know. Yeah, it is what it is, right? It is what it is. But you're right. Great point. Tax never enough for them. Another reason for a financial reset. Yes. It's imminent. It's the cycle of life. It's the cycle of economy. There will be a reset, and then there will be something else. What we need to worry about, though, is what is going to be that reset. Is it going to be a reset where we're going to have CBDCs, central bank digital currencies, instead of Bitcoin? Right? That's the other play. That's the other subtle attack in this move. Why? Canada is talking about central bank digital currency right now. United States is talking about central bank digital currency right now. China is looking at central bank digital currency, and they're not just looking, they're already implementing it in their countries. And what can you do with CBDCs? You can control when and where people spend money and how much, and you can automatically deduct the tax straight from their accounts, regardless of where they hide it. There is no hiding with CBDCs. It's not a cash you can put under your mattress. It's not something you can make a deal under the table. There is no hiding with CBDCs. With a push of button, the taxes is gone. It's automatically taken from you. Right? That's where we're heading. So yes, we're accelerating the big resets. But where is that? Is the reset is going to be the world where all cryptocurrencies that we're allowed to use is going to be controlled by a government that can dictate on how to use it, that can monitor our social media and give us a credit score and be like, hey, I don't like what you're saying. Therefore, you're not allowed to buy at this location. You're not allowed to do your groceries at Whole Food. You're going to do groceries at Walmart because we don't like you. You don't met enough credit score to be at the level of the Whole Food. That's how you control behavior. And that's where we're heading. So, yes, we're heading one way or another, but we have to be careful about what we wish for. Right? But hey, focus on what you can control. And you can control where you go. Make your wealth fast enough so that you can have your own farm, make your own food, so that you don't have to rely on a currency controlled by a country. Right? Solar panels, you're good. You don't need, all you need is food and energy. Karine, is it highly important to know who run things and who control? But one Vladi is one of the, oh, yeah, everyone is. Anyway, that's another discussion that I don't really want to dive deep into. Love him or hate him, Vladi commends and earns respect. The weak soy boy fools in the West are no match. Where are you located, Carl Black? Are you in Canada, United States, or European countries? Very curious. Vladi earned my respect. Um, hey man, if you want respect, you gotta fight for it. You gotta earn it. And right now he's definitely making the West looking like a fool. At first, Joe Biden is like, yes, we're gonna have a tranche of sanctions. What about the tranche of sanctions now? Oh man. Anyway, man. Anyway, I just hope that they do this Bitcoin move because for the long term of cryptocurrencies, that's going to be good. My portfolio is gonna go up, and with that money, I can go buy a land somewhere else and build some bunkers. They try to hurt Vladi by going after oligarchy, thinking that will work. They have no idea how many oligarchy actually do exist. We only know a few. That is true. That's a good point. That is true. We do know only few. We do know only few. Look, Putin's boat is in Italy right now. Uh, If I'm not mistaken, Italy is a NATO country. No one's touching that asset. No one's touching it. You could literally start, seize it, sell it, $100 million right then and there, at least, right? No one's touching it. His family is abroad. His family is enjoying Europe all over the place. No one's doing anything. Why? You wanna? This guy has nukes. You wanna protect your family? Get nukes. Oh man. Anyway, man. But yeah, good points. Anyway, 2020 lockdown was foreshadowing of what next to come. Yeah, yeah. Someone made a claim today that I forgot his names. If I remember, I would shout him out. It was a big YouTube channel. I was listening to him earlier, and he was saying that World War III already started, and it's not a world war between countries. It's actually a war between nations versus people, and it started in 2020 on the lockdown when they started using that as a way to impose more rules and lockdowns that's going to steal away your liberty. I found that was a profound statement, but something that is worth reflecting on because it is true in a way, right? At least right now, we're having a lot of that being pulled away thanks to the Canadian truckers that really push that and drive that on Trudeau's throat. Oh man, there was a and yeah, thanks to the Canadian truckers, But who knows how deep that would go if there was no Canadian truckers in Canada? Who knows? But one thing we do know is Montreal right now is already sounding the alert, saying that get ready for the fourth dose, the jab. Get ready for the fourth one, and he also said get ready for the fourth wave. So Hong Kong right now, Shenzhen, China is going through another case of bug that is raging high. Lots of contagion. So eventually it'll find its way here. And I'm just hoping that at least I can enjoy this summer before this comes here. All right. Yes, sir. Right here in Toronto, Canada. Oh, really? Nice. I used to live in Toronto too. And then I moved to Markham. I spent about 8 years in Ontario, in southern Ontario. So nice to meet you, sir. Nice to meet you. All right, guys. So this is it. I went through all the comments. Thank you very much. Thank you for all the super chats. Shout out to the sponsor of this stream, Peter Investor M, and also shout out to JT Coins as well for his super chat. JT Coin Rings. That was thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Actually, I'm doing a counter for how many times people give me super chats because eventually one day if I ever get to 10K subscribers, you'll see why I'm preparing. But I'm always saving people's comment and super chats to add them up. I'm doing this leaderboard internally. So thank you very much, Reader Investor M. I think I'm not going to tell you your rank, but you're pretty high. You're pretty high. Thank you very much. With that said, guys, that was it. Wrap up is Bitcoin is going to be the next world reserve. Only time will tell. But one thing for sure is Russia, for the first time in history, is considering using Bitcoin to buy oil. This will be making history in many ways than one. For the first part is it will be the first time it's official a nation would make it, not the first time, but a superpower at that caliber would make it official that they're going to side away from the US dollars as opposed to the US dollars for all payments. And that's going to accelerate the decline of the world reserve currencies, the US dollar as the world reserve currency, which will accelerate whoever wants to take its place. Now, one can argue Bitcoin could make a great world reserve currency, not because it still need to mature. We still need that Lightning network so the transaction can happen way faster on layer 2. But this needs to happen because right now, the way it is right now, it's not ready for these type of transactions. But only 21 million Bitcoins will ever be created in a low supply, high demand, and a higher demand because of oil needs is going to really skyrocket the price of Bitcoin, regardless of what governments decide to do with it. And then, with that said, if you're invested in cryptocurrencies, you're celebrating and you are praying and crossing fingers that Russia actually go through this and make it law, because that could trigger and be the catalyst to well over 6 figures for Bitcoin prices, and eventually that could lead to a $1 million for one Bitcoin. The longer this lasts, the longer the demand is set, the longer Russia controls the market on the wet and in Europe, the more demands it will create for Bitcoin. So very interesting thing that happened today, that the Russian lawmaker are considering this. It has a great side to it, a bad side to it. US can ban Bitcoin that comes from Russia, meaning it's going to add a level of complexity where the West is going to need to know where are the Bitcoins from, where are they circulating, and that will expose one of the flawed of Bitcoin itself that it's not fungible. There are ways to solve this problem, and the faster we get to that problem, the faster we'll actually solve it. But these are the dynamics that plays with this move. There are some pros and cons. Long term, it's a beautiful move for cryptocurrencies. Short term, it is a beautiful move for cryptocurrencies, but somewhere in the midterm, it could lead to some severe actions taken against Bitcoin from the West to slow it down, because that's the lifeline for Bitcoin. The West right now is the US dollar, and we don't want it to be disrupted too fast. With that said, salute and have a good night. Thank you very much. We better protect our personal Bitcoin from cyber hacking if this happens, because scammers are coming absolutely. And Mr. JT Coins, JT Coin Rings, definitely take your Bitcoins away of centralized exchange. You do not want any Bitcoins in centralized exchange. You want to hold them in something like this, like a ledger. I've literally have it on my desk because I was making a transaction from my exchange to my ledger to store more of it. So that's why I have it with me. I was doing that just before the stream today. So I have something like this, a ledger. Choose anything you want. It's a hard wallet. The Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies cannot leave it until you put your code in it. And even if your hacker goes through your computer, then they still need a physical input from you to allow the transaction to happen. Otherwise, the transaction cannot happen. If you use any wallet that is virtual only, like MetaMask, you expose yourself to that danger. But if you link your MetaMask with your ledger, then at that point you have a layer of protection on the physical world as opposed to only relying on the cyber world. And this is definitely a must, especially in the times that we're coming. If my prediction comes true, you will definitely want to have all your wealth in cryptocurrencies and things like this, and have many of these in case the government decide to steal one of them. But with that said, guys, that's all I had ready for you. Thank you again for keeping me company for tonight, and enjoy the conversation in the chat today. Thank you very much for everyone tuning in. We'll be making another stream Sunday. Until then, see you. Have a nice day and see you later.
Hey, it's all about wealth engineering. Might be something that you're not used to. It's okay, cause I'm here to introduce you to concepts. Time to grow and make big moves. All about crypto, come see. Stocks and business, yes indeed. Got the info that you need. Hosted by my homie JC. Hey, yeah. Wealth engineering. Stacking and stacking it up. It's time to generate wealth till you living like screw.